And now it's time for The Catch, which takes you around the Great Lakes to hear from reporters about the issues they're covering. This month, we're featuring stories from our partners in the Great Lakes News Collaborative.
In some inland lakes in northern Michigan, plant life and E. coli are showing up in previously crystal clear water. Michigan Radio's Lester Graham of the Environment Report recently spoke with nearby residents about the causes.
Some people want to blame agriculture. Some people want to blame other sources like goose poop, for example. But in reality, it's likely coming from faulty septic systems. And there are an estimated 300,000 faulty septic systems throughout the state, not just the lake communities, but throughout the state.
And Michigan is the only state without a statewide sanitary code.
We don't have regular inspections. We don't have requirements beyond what the health department requires. So it's a problem that we really haven't grappled with as of yet.
Faulty septic systems can contaminate groundwater and make it risky to swim in nearby lakes and rivers.
I saw one community that was actually, you go down to the river and there's a pipe that toilet paper is coming out of in a big fan shape, and it's really awful.
The cost of fixing a faulty septic system often falls on individual homeowners.
A lowball price is about $10,000. It can get a lot higher. But if it's $10,000, that's $3 billion in repairs. And the state, in the recent influx of federal money we've been getting, set aside something like $45 million. So we've got a massive problem, and even with big federal dollars coming in, we are not going to fix it.
In Toronto, environmental reporter Andrew Reeves is covering Canada's history of water infrastructure development.
After the Second World War, there was a big push for developing new communities in the Greater Toronto Area in particular. And we spent a lot of money investing in this infrastructure. But eventually, into the 1970s and early 1980s, that investment basically went off a cliff. And so we've been living off of the investments that our grandparents have made, even through to today.
Just as the Flint water crisis spurred U.S. officials to action, a water crisis in Walkerton, Ontario in the year 2000, in which 7 people died after the town's drinking water was contaminated with E. coli, drove Ontario's government to make changes.
That really kicked the provincial government and local governments into realizing that the unthinkable could actually happen and that drinking water wouldn't be safe for anyone to consume. And so after Walkerton, you see a dramatic increase in the volume of investment that was made, not just in drinking water, but also in wastewater as well.
Of course, that investment has to be paid for, so water rates are rising.
Even though Ontario pays pretty small water rates overall, when we're seeing these 4 or 5% increases year over year, it all adds up in a pretty unsustainable way.
With a growing population in southern Ontario, the need for safe drinking water is only increasing. But, as in the U.S., funding is often complicated by politics.
If we're willing to raise taxes or implement stormwater charges, we can have a robust and resilient system. But that ends up being sometimes a tricky question when politicians get elected, often promising to keep taxes low. And that's something that we've seen here in Ontario quite a lot.
In Chicago, journalist Laura Gersoni is rolling out a new bi-weekly offering from Circle of Blue called Fresh, a Great Lakes policy briefing.
Water policy affects everybody, but the Great Lakes region specifically is at the center of some of the biggest stories of our time. Infrastructure challenges, water quality, environment, you name it. And behind all of these issues lie policy. Part of what we're hoping to do with Fresh is really demystify these complex stories to make them accessible both to policy experts and to average citizens.
One story Laura's following is centered on the Canadian federal budget.
For the first time in years, the Canadian government has plans to fully fund the Great Lakes Fishery Commission, which is an organization whose purpose is to support the science that guides fishery management in the US and Canada. So this story gets to what I think is so unique about Great Lakes policy, which is that it doesn't neatly map onto the typical boundaries that we associate with policy making. It's binational, involving the US and Canada. It also involves 5 states. So these are policy issues that require a unique degree of cooperation, which is what I think makes these stories so interesting.
At Great Lakes Now, we aim to cover the Great Lakes region and the people who live here, like you. Please follow us on social media, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and sign up for our newsletter at greatlakesnow.org.